Welcome back, everybody. U.S.-Canada relations. That's always interesting, but especially right now.
Yeah, it's definitely heating up a little bit.
It is, with President-elect Trump,
Yeah.
Making some comments about our neighbors to the north.
Yeah, his recent remarks about Canada potentially becoming the 51st state have definitely sparked a lot of conversation and a lot of head scratching, I think, on both sides of the border.
It's a bold statement for sure. And hey, before we get too deep into this, if you're liking this discussion, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes.
Yeah, we love having you all along with us.
So, it's kind of remarkable how Trump even refers to, Prime Minister Trudeau as like the governor of the great state of Canada.
Yeah, the governor, in quotes, of course.
Right. Is he serious? Is this a joke? Like, what's going on?
It's really hard to tell with Trump sometimes, right? Is it a joke? Is he being serious? Or is it, his own unique brand of political theater?
Well, regardless, whatever his intent is, this has real implications.
Yeah.
His threat of a 25% tariff on Canadian goods, unless they tighten border security.
Right. And that's a very real threat, and not just, an empty gesture. Economists, have crunched the numbers, and they say this could have a very significant impact on the Canadian economy.
Wow.
Potentially leading to job losses and reduced economic growth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So is Canada responding to all this pressure? Are they caving? Are they like, okay, we'll do whatever you want?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
They've actually come out with a pretty robust plan of their own. They're putting $900 million into bolstering their security along the border. This includes increasing surveillance with helicopters and drones, giving new tools and resources to law enforcement, and even creating a joint strike force with U.S. authorities to combat transnational organized crime.
Joint strike force, that sounds pretty serious.
Yeah.
What exactly does that entail?
Yeah, it is a significant development. This joint strike force is going to involve both U.S. and Canadian authorities working side by side to target criminal networks that are involved in smuggling, drug trafficking, and other illegal activities.
So, you see these headlines, you kind of assume everything's conflict between U.S. and Canada, but this really points to like a deeper level of cooperation.
Absolutely. I think it demonstrates that despite the political rhetoric, there's still a strong foundation of collaboration between the two countries when it comes to, things like security concerns that they share.
So Chrystia Freeland, stepping down as finance minister, that was a shakeup.
Yeah, it definitely was a shakeup in Canadian politics.
So reportedly it was disagreements with Trudeau.
Right. Apparently disagreements about government spending and the general direction of the country.
So does this hurt Canada's ability to negotiate with Trump, you think?
Well, it definitely creates uncertainty at a critical time. It raises questions about whether Canada can present a united front in these negotiations with the incoming Trump administration.
So it's like internal politics and this external pressure from the U.S.
Exactly. It's a very fascinating dynamic. This interplay between those two things will definitely shape the future of U.S.-Canada relations.
Well, let's get into some specifics on this $900 million border security plan.
Yeah.
What's in it, and do we think it's going to work?
Well, the plan includes a wide range of initiatives. It's pretty multifaceted. One key piece is deploying advanced surveillance technology. They're going to be using drones, helicopters, and even mobile surveillance towers to monitor these vast stretches of the border, especially in these remote areas that are very difficult to patrol on foot.
Well, that makes sense, technology, but what about the human element? What about smuggling and drug trafficking?
Right, so they're taking a multi-pronged approach there as well, in addition to increasing the number of Border Patrol agents and giving them more training. They're also investing in specialized units, including dog teams that are trained to detect drugs and other contraband.
Dog teams.
Yeah.
Classic, but effective.
Absolutely tried and true.
I kind of wonder, what it would be like if those dog teams were patrolling the 51st state.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let us know down in the comments what you think about that, and give this video a like if you're enjoying the discussion.
Yeah, we want to hear from you guys.
So, Trump, one of his main gripes has been fentanyl flowing into the U.S.
Yeah.
And he blames it on, lax security at the Canadian border.
Yeah, he's definitely pointed the finger at Canada for that.
But is there evidence to support that?
Well, that's where things get interesting. The data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection actually shows that the amount of fentanyl seized at the U.S.-Canada border is significantly lower than what's being seized at the U.S.-Mexico border.
Really? Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah, it is a surprising statistic.
So Trump might be using fentanyl as like a justification, but the numbers don't really back it up.
Yeah, it's a classic example of how political narratives don't always match up with the data. While Trump might be using this fentanyl issue to justify his pressure on Canada, the numbers suggest it might not be the primary driver of his actions.
So if it's not fentanyl, what is it? Is it just economics, or is there something deeper going on, some kind of geopolitical play?
That's a great question, and one that we need to explore further. We need to consider Trump's America First agenda, and how his approach to international relations might be influencing his dealings with Canada.
Okay, so let's get into that.
Let's do it.
Next time. We'll see you then.
See you then. Trump's America First agenda. It's really shaken things up globally.
It has.
And it's especially interesting to see how it's affecting U.S.-Canada relations.
It's like this tension bubbling under the surface, right? We have this history of cooperation, shared values.
Right.
But then you have this sense that Trump sees Canada as like competition, not a partner.
Exactly. And especially when it comes to trade. Canada has been America's biggest trading partner for a long time.
Yeah.
Their economies are really tightly linked.
For sure.
But these protectionist policies that Trump's put in place, they're aimed at boosting American industries and reducing trade deficits.
Right.
And that's created some friction and uncertainty in the relationship.
It's like he's trying to rewrite the rules.
Yeah.
Redefine how they engage with each other.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of Canadians worried.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of apprehension up in Canada.
Yeah.
They're used to this stable, predictable relationship with the U.S.
Right.
But with Trump, it's so unpredictable,
Yeah.
and he's willing to just throw out the rule book.
Yes.
And that's created a lot of unease.
It's like walking on eggshells, never knowing what's going to cause the next, Twitter storm or policy shift.
Exactly. And this tension is made even worse by the media on both sides of the border.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The media plays a big role, in shaping how the public sees this issue. And it's interesting to see how it's being framed differently in both countries.
Right. Like in Canada, what's the focus?
Well, in Canada, there's a lot of attention on Trump's rhetoric and how his policies could affect their economy and their way of life.
And in the U.S.?
In the U.S., you hear more about trade imbalances and the perception that Canada is taking advantage of them.
It's always two sides to every story.
Exactly, two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Each country has its own concerns and priorities, and the media just reflects those different perspectives.
But you got to remember, amidst all the noise and the politics,
right,
that the U.S. and Canada, they have a deep bond.
They really do.
Yeah.
They've been allies and partners and friends for decades.
Yeah.
They've fought side by side in wars, and they've built strong economic and cultural connections.
So how do you reconcile that bond with, all this tension we're seeing now?
Right.
Is there a path forward where both countries can address their concerns, but, not ruin the relationship?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's something both governments are going to have to figure out in the years to come.
Yeah.
I think open and honest dialogue is key. They need to be willing to listen to each other's concerns and find common ground.
It's like any relationship, communication is so important.
It really is.
But it also takes flexibility and compromise.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's going to get everything they want.
Yeah,
they need to figure out how to meet each other's needs while still protecting their own interests.
It's a delicate balancing act for sure.
It is.
But it's absolutely crucial for keeping this relationship healthy and productive.
Yeah, we need to look past the current political stuff and remember how important U.S.-Canada cooperation is.
Exactly.
They both benefit from a strong and stable relationship.
100%.
It's more than just being neighbors. They're connected in so many ways.
For sure.
Their economies are intertwined. Their people share values and cultural ties, and they're facing a lot of the same challenges on the global stage.
So it's in both their best interests to find ways to work together even when they disagree.
Yeah. And that brings us back to Trudeau's speech.
Yeah.
Where he talked about his minority government's resilience. Despite these internal political struggles and the pressure from the U.S., he's trying to project this image of strength and determination.
Yeah.
It's a big moment for Trudeau to show leadership.
It is.
How he handles this whole situation will have huge implications for Canada.
Absolutely.
You think he's doing a good job so far? And how do you see this playing out in the long run?
Well, it's still early days.
Yeah.
It's hard to say for sure, but I think Trudeau's ability to stand up for Canadian interests while keeping the lines of communication open with the Trump administration, that's going to be key.
That's a tough balancing act.
It really is.
And it takes a lot of skill and understanding of this relationship.
For sure.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about border security, which has been a hot topic.
Yeah, border security is always a sensitive issue.
It is.
It gets tied up with political rhetoric and emotions run high, but we need to look at the facts. objectively.
Yeah. And speaking of facts,
Right.
we talked about the fentanyl seizures being lower at the U.S.-Canada border compared to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Yeah.
It seems like people think Canada's this major fentanyl source, but the numbers don't really support that.
It's a good reminder that what we think is true isn't always the case. Fentanyl is a serious problem and border security can always be improved. But we need to make decisions based on evidence, not assumptions.
And that brings us to a question for you, our listeners.
Yeah.
What do you think contributes to this difference in fentanyl seizures?
Right.
Is it just geography, or are there other things going on? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and if you're liking this discussion, hit that like button to show your support.
We love hearing from you guys.
So let's zoom out a bit and think about this border security debate in the bigger picture.
Right.
How does it fit into the overall U.S.-Canada relationship?
Right.
And what could be the long-term consequences of these increased security measures?
Those are great questions and ones that we need to consider carefully. And we're going to dig into those in the next part of our discussion, so stay tuned. So, increasing security measures, while they might be necessary to deal with, specific threats, sometimes they can have unintended consequences.
How so?
Well, they can create barriers to trade and travel. They can slow down the flow of goods and people across the border, and even, put a strain on the personal relationships that are really at the heart of U.S.-Canada relations.
Right. It's like you need security, but you don't want to lose that connection.
Exactly. It's not just about economics or politics,
Right.
It's about the people on both sides of the border whose lives are so intertwined,
Yeah, families and friends and communities.
Like you've built these strong ties over generations.
It's easy to get lost in all the policy talk and the diplomacy.
Yeah.
But these decisions at the top, they affect real people.
They really do. The human element often gets forgotten in these discussions about border security. You know, we need to think about the impact on everyday people and their communities. How do these measures affect their ability to see their loved ones? To access important services, to pursue economic opportunities.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that policies have real-world consequences. They can divide people, disrupt lives, and, kind of erode that fabric of shared experiences that brings us together.
And that's especially true for the U.S. and Canada.
Right.
These two countries have this long history of shared values, cultural exchange, economic dependence,
Yeah.
We can't let political rhetoric and security concerns overshadow those deep connections.
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Protecting your borders without building walls that divide you.
Right.
Keeping things secure without sacrificing the openness that's always been such a big part of this relationship.
You put it perfectly. It's a tough challenge.
It is.
It takes careful thought and a commitment to finding solutions that address security concerns, but also maintain strong and healthy ties between the two countries.
So where do we go from here? What are the key takeaways from, our look into this complicated relationship?
Well, I think it's clear that U.S.-Canada relations are at a crossroads. The incoming Trump administration has brought this unpredictability.
Right.
And there are some very real concerns about how his America First agenda might affect Canada.
Yeah, the tariff threat, the 51st state comment, the focus on border security.
Exactly. Those are all signs that things are changing.
Yeah.
But we've also seen signs of resilience and cooperation. Canada's response to the tariff threat, the fact that they're working together on border security, and the strong economic and cultural ties all suggest that there's still a good foundation for a positive relationship moving forward.
It's complicated. There are challenges and opportunities.
Right.
And a lot depends on the choices that leaders on both sides make.
Absolutely. Will they choose to cooperate and compromise, or will they let political games and nationalistic agendas drive a wedge between these two longtime allies?
That's the question.
It is only time will tell, but the stakes are definitely high.
They are. The decisions made in the next few months and years will really shape the future of this relationship.
For sure. And we want to hear from you, our listeners. What do you think about the future of U.S.-Canada relations? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? What advice would you give to leaders on both sides? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you like what you're hearing, don't forget to subscribe for more discussions like this.
Thanks for joining us for this look at U.S.-Canada relations. It's a topic that deserves our attention, and we encourage you to keep learning about the complexities of this fascinating and ever-changing relationship.